Welcome everybody, I'm Pep Watson. This is Crime and Justice TV, Reflections, episode 4. So we've got a lovely bit of sun up here on the right, which is quite nice. You can see in the shot in front of me the image of a prison. It's actually a young offenders institution. You can see the great British flag there flying. All the cars of the prison officers. So I'm actually here at Feltham Young Offenders Institution. It's the first time that I've been here for 21 years. When I was detained here as a 15-year-old child in 1997, and I was here again in 1998 when I was 16 years old. So I'm going to talk about what's brought me here today in a moment, but this week I've been thinking a lot about hope. I've been thinking a lot about Madeleine McCann. I've been thinking a lot about hope and what hope means, and the great and fantastic things that are achieved in life because people are inspired by hope. And I was watching Raphael Rowe on Netflix, World Toughest Prisons, recently, and he was in one of these really tough South American prisons. And one of the prisoners asked Raphael Rowe, what did you think about killing yourself while you were in prison for 12 years for crimes that you didn't commit? And Raphael Rowe's answer to that question was no. And the prisoners in the prison asked him why not, and Raphael Rowe answered because of hope. So Raphael Rowe is very calm and measured, and he just very eloquently explained that I always had hope. Hope kept me going. I always hoped and believed I would be released, I would be free, and that kept me going, and that stopped me wanting to kill myself. And it made me think about the powerful story of Papillon. So when Papillon was in this prison on the island, in isolation, constant isolation, 24-hour isolation in the pitch black, being starved to the point where he was a skeleton, hope kept him going. It was hope that kept him alive. If he didn't have hope, he would have died, and hope kept him alive. He always hoped that he would be free, and that's what happened. That materialized because he then escaped and he was free. So I made a video recently on my channel, which was a part 2 100,000 view comments response to the Sean Atwood podcast. And so many of these comments were about these young offenders institutions. Feltham, Aylesbury, Swinfen Hall, Moorlands, Doncaster, Aylesbury, Onley, Glenparva, Norwich, Chelmsford, Pullman, Scotland, England, all these young offenders institutions all over the United Kingdom, which never get any spotlight. They're never spoken about. Now, these young offenders institutions have horrifying reconviction statistics. As many as 86% of the children and young teenagers who leave these prisons reoffend within 2 years. Now, the mission statement of these young offenders institutions states that we will detain those sent by the courts, and we will treat them with dignity, and we will help them to lead law-abiding and useful lives. But the reconviction statistics are not consistent with that mission statement. These young offenders institutions fail children, they fail young offenders, and they create lifetime chronic recidivists. And on top of that, despite the fact that it's 21 years since I've been to this institution, children are still dying horrific self-inflicted deaths and are still being abused in these institutions, and there's no accountability. There's no accountability whatsoever. So when I was here, the officers were playing these games called Colosseum. So I was in a cell on Lapwing, in a 4-man cell. They've thrown me in this 4-man cell as a 15-year-old child with 3 16, 17-year-old violent kids who bullied me and attacked me. That was on Lapwing. And then they opened my door and they took me out and they put me in a cell on Swallow Unit with an Indian guy, an Indian child who was 16 years old. Then they'd open my door after a couple of weeks and they'd move me to another double cell with a black guy, and they'd leave me in that cell for a while. Then they'd open my door and they'd move me to Heron Unit, and they'd put me in a cell on heroin unit. Now, on March the 21st in the year 2000, a young lad called Zahid Mubarak was placed in a cell with a known racist in a game called Colosseum, where the prison officers were betting on the outcome of putting a vulnerable prisoner in the cell with in the cell with a violent person, or in the case of Zahid Mubarak, they put him in a cell with a known racist. A kid at the time called Robert Stewart, who then battered him with a table leg and killed him. So I want to dedicate this episode to Zahid Mubarak. I want to keep his memory alive in my heart and in my activism for the greater cause of good, and for change in the world, and for justice, and for the fight against institutional racism, which 25 years post Stephen Lawrence, the disease of institutional racism in these young offenders institutions is still very much rife, active and thriving. That's a fact, that's reality. So there's been quite a few child suicides that aren't breaking into the mainstream news. It's an absolute disgrace. 21 years since I was here, detained in this institution, children are still dying horrific deaths in these prisons. Katie Allen in Pullman, absolutely horrific story of this young girl killing herself in prison. You had another one in the same prison, William Lindsay again, he was only 16 years old, that was in 2018. Robert Wagstaff, 18, same prison, Pullman, Scotland. Liam Kerr, 19 years old, Pullman. And then in 2018, Louise Menzies, who was 14 years old, who was in Sky House, she took her own life. 14 years old. Children killing themselves in secure units, in institutions, in young offenders institutions, and it's happening all over the United Kingdom, and it's an absolute disgrace. And clueless dinosaurs like Rory Stewart and David Gork, they just haven't got the slightest idea about the importance of addressing this. Nobody cares. Like, that's the reality. Nobody cares about these children who are dying in these places. So I want to make a plea. I'm here today to dedicate this episode to the memory of Zahid Mubarak, and I want to make a plea to all professionals, whatever your job is, all professionals in these institutions, in Feltham Young Offenders institutions, and in institutions and secure units that house children all over the United Kingdom who have a responsibility to safeguard the care of children in these establishments. I want to make a plea here today on this episode 4. So there was never accountability for Zahid Mubarak. None of the prison officers faced any justice. We can't have justice without accountability. Now, from a legal perspective, these officers, it's arguably a conspiracy to murder. Crime and Justice TV, my position is not to demonise prison officers. That's in the past. So I'm talking about, I want to keep things current, I want to keep things in the here and now. My mission is to inspire modern thinkers, the next generation of modern thinking academics, the next generation of grassroots politicians who might be still at school at the moment, young aspiring police officers, prison officers, the next generation of professionals. This is the long game, because we're dealing with a culture. Anybody who comes into these places to work, you're dealing with an entrenched culture of abuse and no accountability that's been going on for decades. So my mission is to inspire you, and I want you to think about this issue of no accountability and abuse in these places. And for those who are working in these places, I want to read something out to you, and I want you to think about this. So I'm looking for whistleblowers, defectors. I want people to stand up and take the hit, be prepared to take the hit and be brave and courageous, and blow the whistle and defect and expose what's going on in these places, because for too long it's been going on and it's been getting away with, and there's no accountability and children are dying. So I'm going to read this extract out. So this is from IPP, the trilogy. Now, I'm not here today to talk about the injustice of IPP, but I do mention it in this extract. So this is from the extract, IPP, the trilogy, a 40,000 word polemic I wrote whilst I was detained under IPP recall for 2 years in HMP Winchester. So I really want you to think about this if you work in these places and you're observing abuse or racism inflicted against children who are under your care. At present, potential defectors remain silent. IPP is testing the ethical frameworks of those working in many professions associated with IPP. These professions include prison officers, mental health, counselling, probation, psychologists and drug and alcohol practitioners. Practitioners of forensic psychology with experience of up to 30 years in the current climate have been known to make astonishing statements. Statements include, "It's a travesty of justice that this man is still in prison," and parole boards will adjourn parole hearings for IPPs to have them assessed for personality disorders, knowing that they most likely don't have a personality disorder, but just simply to keep them in prison a bit longer due to the media climate. These professionals responsible for these statements refuse to go on the record. More concerning is that professionals responsible for these and similar statements then proceed to write reports condemning IPPs to further years of IPP hell. These professionals are understandably unwilling to risk throwing away their life's work, their 20-30-year working careers, their salary, pension and reputation. Understandable unwillingness aside, these professionals are certainly aware that they are contributing to A. the mass mental slaughter of the disappeared, B. a mass miscarriage of justice affecting thousands of people of proportions unparalleled perhaps by anything similar in modern criminal justice systems anywhere else in Western Europe and possibly the entire continent, and finally C. slow, horrific, self-inflicted, state-sponsored IPP deaths. This is a hard pill to swallow, one which may remain stuck in the throat for a while. Tremendous courage and extraordinary bravery is required of a person to digest this pill. Defection will not undermine your life's work. It may be the making of you. Abandoning yourself to the cause of justice and fairness is an opportunity. Opportunity in life is often missed because it is dressed in overalls and looks like too much hard work. This is an opportunity of a lifetime. Mastering the art of timing is a play practiced by Machiavellian-type minds in the pursuit of power. Master the art of timing for the cause of justice and fairness and to protect life. Master the art of timing in your life journey. The time to defect is now. Your sacrifice may deliver the blow which influences legislation that prevents further deaths and further child suicide deaths. Instead of undermining your life's work, this may be the making of you. As you struggle to adhere to an ethical code of practice, consider adherence to the truth. Realize the truth. Watch and listen and observe the way things are. Sacrifice your indulgence in selfish habits and moods. Give it all up for the welfare of all sentient beings suffering in hell in these institutions. Move toward truth and you will realize truth in your own life rather than just living in a perfunctory habitual way. Exchange immoral, selfish, unkind, unjust pursuits for being one who is moving towards impeccability, generosity, morality, and compassionate action in the world. If you do not, will not, cannot, then what use is your life if you will only use it for nothing other than self-indulgence? Defect. Blow the whistle. Live the truth. Be the truth. Realize the truth. In your own life, recognize your true nature as one with the ultimate absolute truth or the eternal bliss of the deathless realm. Be the truth. Justice is truth. Do we really have a country if we don't have justice? Justice will prevail. Potential defectors, whistleblowers, in your silence as you sit with only yourself and your conscience, Consider the magnitude of defecting, the lives you will touch, the children's lives you will touch, the lives you will save. Be decisive, be bold, be brave. Be comforted, for the righteous cry out, and the Lord hears them. He delivers them from all their troubles. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. A righteous person may have many troubles, but the Lord delivers him from them all. He protects all his or her bones, not one of them will be broken. The English language is made up of vowels and consonants. Verbs, nouns and adjectives are created and used by combining said vowels and consonants. It is an impossibility to think that a combination of these sounds and words, or that words on a page, could ever explain or ascertain the rewards for those brave beings who defect, who choose to live the truth. Fortune favours the brave. Have faith, for men and women of faith have courage. Be courageous, and your soul will shine more brightly than the colours of the most spectacular rainbow. Do what is right, do what is fair. Do what is just, and your life, the lives of your husbands, wives, your children, your friends, will be touched by the light of the furthest stars. Do not worry about your life, or what you will eat, or about your body, or what you will wear. Life is so much more than food, and the ravens, they do not sow or reap, they have no storeroom or barn, yet they are fed. And how much more valuable you are than birds. Who of you, by worrying, can add a single hour to your life? Since you cannot do this very little thing, why do you worry about the rest? Consider how the lilies grow. They do not labour or spin. Yet I tell you, not even Solomon in all his splendour was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, how much more will he clothe you, O you of little faith? And do not set your heart on what you will eat or drink. Do not worry about it. For the pagan world runs after all such things, and your Father knows that you need them. But seek his kingdom, and these things will be given to you as well. So that was the extract, inspired by lots of inspirations: Eckhart Tolle, my faith, religious scholars, and that was written at a time of immeasurable suffering for me. So I want practitioners and professionals who work in these establishments to think about what I said, and to think about how incredible, how brave it is to stand up to the abuse that's happening in these places all over the United Kingdom, and how much it will benefit you if you stand up and talk about what's going on here in the public arena. So that's it from me at Feltham Young Offenders Institution, 21 years after I was last here. Life is good, all is well, the sun is shining, I'm free, I've got food, shelter, I've got everything I need, I don't want for anything. I hope you enjoyed the episode. This is dedicated to Zahid Mubarak. That's it from me, Pepsi Watson, episode 4, Reflections. I wish you all good health and prosperity, and may you continue to love by recognising yourself in others.